Why didn't we avoid all this? Why didn't we answer the questions yes or no as the committee demanded? Because we wanted to challenge the right of the committee to ask such questions.
Whose words are these? Do you know? No official, high or petty, may prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, or other matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act their faith therein. Supreme Court Justice Jackson wrote this. This was the law of the land until April 10th, 1950.
On that day, by its refusal to hear our case, the court washed its hands of the rights of the American people. Our rights, your rights. And sitting in silence on the bench was the same Mr. Justice Jackson.
When we appeared before J. Parnell Thomas and his committee, we thought the Constitution guaranteed the rights of everyone. We believed the Supreme Court would certainly stand behind its own decisions. Well, we were mistaken.
The committee is now free to operate, to drag before it 1,000 people, or the million it boasts it has on its list.
How will you answer? You can't refuse to answer yes or no. That's contempt. It means a prison sentence for you, just as it does for us.
Suppose you answer yes. How will it look smeared all over the front pages of your hometown newspaper? And what'll happen to your job?
The next question is, who else was there? Who else is a member? We want names, places, people.
Or suppose you answer no to a question.
I can prove you're a communist. Louis Badenz will testify. Whittaker Chambers will testify. Why, the Department of Justice has 24 professional witnesses who travel around the country proving nothing else.
But those men are liars.
Sure, Whittaker Chambers is a liar. Yet Alger Hiss got 5 years.
Don't you see? These investigations are actually traps. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
We are aware of a developing nightmare of fear in our land, in which increasing numbers of citizens are being forced to swear, I am not this, I am not that, I don't belong to anything, I don't believe in anything, I don't criticize anything.
Everybody investigating everybody else. And for this, on April 24th, 1950, President Truman claimed credit,
boasting in a public speech that his administration had convicted citizens of contempt for refusing to testify before congressional committees.
Not just one court or one committee, not just the Department of Justice, but the State Department. Not just the Supreme Court, but the President himself. Why? Why?
Could it be that the Cold War is responsible? Is it possible that under the pretext of the Cold War, civil rights are to be taken from the American people?
So that the very people who would have to fight and die in such a war will have no say on whether to go to war or not.
When we were asked, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party, the committee was really preparing to ask you, are you now or have you ever been in favor of peace?
We feel that the question of peace and war, of devastated cities, of millions of dead Americans, is too important to be left to the generals.
Or in the hands of the Committee on Un-American Activities.
In 1859, Abraham Lincoln said, "The people are the rightful masters of the Congresses and the courts."
We believe this, and for asserting that belief before a congressional committee, 10 of us are going to prison, casualties of the Cold War. How many more will there be?
There need be no more. That depends on you. Truly, it depends on you.
After being released, Edward Dmytryk broke with the rest of the Hollywood 10 and agreed to cooperate with the committee. He admitted to being a part of the Communist Party and named 26 others. After they had served their time, the 10 were added to Hollywood's blacklist, a group of people who were denied jobs in major Hollywood studios. But it wasn't just the Hollywood 10 who were affected by the HUAC's investigations. Artists saw a 13% drop in their chance for finding work if they had previously worked with someone who was on the blacklist, even if they themselves weren't a suspected communist. And actors who had worked with one of the Hollywood 10 saw a 20% drop in their chance for finding auditions. Only a select few of the blacklisted were able to continue to work. Dalton Trumbo was able to earn an Academy Award in 1957 for The Brave One under the pen name Robert Rich, but he was one of the lucky few. Most of the Hollywood 10 and other writers and directors were never able to find work again, or even make profits from previous movies because of a ban on communist-influenced movies. As this strong anti-communist sentiment took hold in America, an equally strong pro-consumerism mentality did as well. If you were buying American goods, you were supporting the cause, and therefore couldn't be under the influence of communism. This consumerist push was largely facilitated by the creation of Levittowns, or as we know them now, suburbs. As the number of people who worked in the city but lived in the suburbs grew, many families saw the need to purchase a car, or even multiple. Posters advocated for the use of a television set in the home, showing how they could benefit children. With the threat of atomic annihilation looming, many families sought to build bomb shelters and stock up on canned foods and other resources, allowing shopping malls to grow in popularity. The government's fear of communism was just as great as the people's. During the Cold War, the CIA launched a wide array of projects, from new forms of spyware to testing the effects of hallucinogens. Project Acoustic Kitty was a plan that involved implanting a recording device within cats and training them how to record the conversations of important Russian officials. Unfortunately, during their first test of the program, the cat ran into the middle of the street and was hit by a car. The project was very promptly discontinued.
The end of World War II brought extreme changes to the world. Planes had been given new engines that could withstand longer flight and heavier cargo. Rockets were developed that would later take us to the moon. But the most significant of these changes was the development of the atomic bomb. This weapon had completely changed how wars could be fought. It could be especially noted that during the Cold War, Russia and the United States were on the brink of nuclear war. That is why the United States became obsessed with the effects of radiation on the human body. At the time, our knowledge of radiation was limited, and its effects were misunderstood. We knew that certain cancers could react to it, but we didn't know any long-term effects that it could cause. In 1945, the government injected 55-year-old Eb Cabe with 4.7 micrograms of plutonium. Mr. Cabe had recently got into a car accident, but besides his injuries sustained by the crash, he was completely healthy. Doctors extracted samples such as teeth and bone fragments from Mr. Cabe during his stay at the Manhattan Project Army Hospital. To make matters worse, Eb Cabe was not informed about the plutonium injections. In fact, the whole reason he was at the medical facility was to get his broken arm reset. This was the first of 18 plutonium injections that would occur in the years to follow. The next 3 people to receive injections were all suffering from cancer. The doctors who diagnosed them claimed that they had no more than 5 years to live, so the government saw them as the perfect test subjects. One of these patients was given 95 micrograms of plutonium, 3 times the amount that had ever been administered before. In 1946, Simon Shaw, a 4-year-old Australian boy suffering from bone cancer, came to the hospital to seek treatment. The doctors asked his parents if it was okay for them to give him the injection without disclosing what it was. His parents agreed. After he was exposed to radioactive materials, Simon's condition got worse. He was taken back to Australia, where he died of bone cancer at the age of 5. There were 18 of these cases. People would seek medical help from professionals who would use them as guinea pigs. It can be noted that these injections piqued the interest of the Department of Defense on the effects of radiation. They went on to fund other tests relating to this topic in order to evaluate the possible hazards to humans who might be exposed to plutonium, either in the course of operation of Pine nuclear reactor, or in the event of a possible enemy action against military and civilian populations. The government conducted around 42 experiments relating to the effects of radiation on the human body. These tests were known as Project Sunshine. Their testing methods were extremely diverse, as well were their test subjects. For example, from 1942 to 1949, Pregnant women were given radioactive iron pills to determine the absorption of iron and fetal tissue distribution during pregnancy. In 1949, a government testing site allowed radioactive material to be released into the atmosphere and blow into Walla Walla, Washington. Thousands of people were affected by the symptoms extremely similar to that of radiation poisoning. There was also the case of the Fernald School Science Club. These tests took place in Fernald, Ohio, in the late 1940s and early 1950s at a school for the mentally handicapped. Researchers from Harvard and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology partnered with the School Science Club in order to better understand the effects of radiation. They took samples from the boys in the club before the experimentation began. The boys participated in activities such as eating radioactive elements mixed into food, such as milk and oatmeal. Though the dosages were not high enough to cause any permanent harm to the children, it is still an extremely controversial subject. They used children who were no way informed about the seriousness of the study in which they were participating in. The Cold War motivated the government to take part in experiments that would be extremely unpopular in the years to come. They were interested in things such as radiation that would weaken and even break down the body, but that was not the only focus of these experiments performed during the war. The U.S. became obsessed with finding a way to engineer the perfect soldier, specifically one that could blend into society so well that not even they would know what they were capable of. That is what led to the notorious MK Ultra experiments.